Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sky Sports F1 podcast with me, Matt Baker. We are here at the new Aston Martin Technology Campus. We're here for one man. It's not Craig Slater. It's not Ted Kravitz. It is Adrian Newey, who has today announced, or has today been announced as the managing technical partner at Aston Martin. He will also become a shareholder as well. Craig and Ted have been covering the story for us at Sky Sports F1. So I think we're just going to go straight in with a reaction first. I mean, Craig's taking a big... While you take a swig of water...
It's been a busy day.
Yeah.
It's been a busy day.
Ted, come on, give me your reaction to the news.
Well, it changes everything. It changes everything in Formula One. It changes everything for Aston Martin. It changes everything for the future of, drivers who go everywhere and where. And when you consider that, we are sat here on the land previously owned by Eddie Jordan at the Silverstone factory. And Eddie Jordan, by the way, who was here today in attendance as honorific, pre-owner of this team that's based here, and Adrian Newey's manager, which isn't a joke. We believe he is his actual manager and has done wonders for Adrian Newey, actually, in his negotiations, both with Red Bull and Aston Martin, which we'll get on for. It's SEISMIC. I'm sorry, I don't want to overstate it. All right, I do. But, it is SEISMIC. And it's not as simple as saying Adrian Newey has joined the team that used to be Jordan. This is the team that used to be Jordan. But wow, what a team, what a facility, what investment, what prospects it has. And with Adrian Newey on board, they are going to be championship challengers in 2 years' time, maximum 3 years' time. And that's SEISMIC for Formula One.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Nuclear fusion came to my house. You've got Andy Cowell here and Adrian Newey, the two kind of binary parts and the car guy
yeah.
together in this. And the two most significant engineers in Formula One, certainly of the last, in Newey's case for 30 odd years, maybe more. Cowell was the only engineer who supplanted him for that time in terms of influence in Mercedes' period of dominance. But yeah, we're all sitting here looking out to see if Lawrence Stroll takes off in his helicopter, Ted. That's how he arrived here today. But he has speculated to accumulate. And I mean, the money aspect to all of this, why did Aston Martin get Newey ahead of the others who might have done? The one thing I'd say today, a lot of people, influential people at some of the teams tipped to get Adrian Newey said, we don't want to be drawn into a bidding war for his services. I sense today a lot of maybe regretting the fact that they didn't splash more cash and try and force the issue a little bit more to bring in. I agree with you, because it feels like this team, the inevitable result is them winning at some point sooner rather than later.
I certainly agree with you there. I just don't think the other teams were as creative as Lawrence Stroll was. Mm-hmm. Who amongst the other teams would have offered Adrian skin in the game?
Yeah.
Shareholding, a long-term shareholding. I would imagine Ferrari would have never given him a shareholding in Ferrari. I mean, all right, maybe Williams would have done, but would Adrian really want to go? It's a bit of an uphill struggle going to Williams. McLaren wouldn't have offered him a shareholding.
Maybe they should have done.
Mercedes, I'm not sure they were ever going to think. Toto Wolff, Ineos, Mercedes-Benz, they don't want to lessen their shareholdings for Adrian Newey. Lawrence Stroll has that flexibility, and he had the imagination to make him a partner, a technical partner, a partner at the top level of the team. So the only person Adrian Newey reports to is Lawrence Stroll. And effectively, I don't think he will. He'll report to himself, really. And he's a shareholder. So he's got skin in the game. And I think they could have offered him 30, 40, whatever million. But I think Lawrence was creative in what he offered him. And we've seen the shareholding thing offered to key other people in sports, haven't we?
Yes, David Beckham, or at least gets the option to buy an MLS franchise. Kylian Mbappe at Paris Saint-Germain gets a stake in the team, probably keeps him there for 2 or 3 years longer than he would have done otherwise. Well,
Was Messi?
Yeah, I think Messi will have some kind of equivalency within the MLS structure to maybe do what Beckham has. But you say other teams couldn't have done that. If you read Adrian Newey's book, you know that's something he has wanted throughout his career. So if you're serious about getting him, find a way to do it. I don't think Lawrence Stroll has sold away a massive chunk of this team to Adrian Newey, has he? I mean, you could come up with a bit of smoke and mirrors here to enable him to say he's a shareholder without diluting significantly the key stakes in the team. But yes, you're absolutely right. He has he has done what he needed to do to get him in, and he'll be the one laughing at the end of the day. And the others, I think they will live to regret not taking this opportunity. You say they would never had the chance to do so. I suspect one or two of them might have done.
They might have done, but what takes me back to actually what Newey said in the press conference was that this, we think it must have been a hard decision to pass up Ferrari. You want a chance to work with a great marque like that and with Lewis Hamilton. Wouldn't you have wanted to go with Williams, go back to where it all started, or McLaren? And actually, Adrian said, you know what? It became quite an easy decision in the end.
Yeah.
It became quite an easy decision for reasons that we'll get onto, not least the shareholding and the partnership when he was offered that, but also because of the influence and the autonomy of Lawrence Stroll, and also because of the facilities, and he could see that he could have more of an influence here than he could maybe at a Ferrari or a Mercedes.
I think it's clear as well, this is a unique opportunity. This is different to what he's done at Red Bull because of the fact he's a shareholder now, isn't it? It feels like an evolution, something literally a new challenge. I do wonder though, Craig, just on the finances of it, what do you understand to be the figures in question here? Because this now makes him, doesn't it, one of the highest paid sports people in the UK.
Yeah, the figure I'm most confident about, and I think there's a lot of figures in the public domain, or figures that people are putting out there. The figure I'm most confident about is a basic salary of $25 million per year. So just under, in today's exchanges, under £20 million. The bonuses could lift that by another another half. So you're looking at £30 million. The agreement is for 5 years, but of course there's an open-ended aspect because he's also a shareholder as well now. So it could be for the foreseeable. But those are the terms which are more competitive terms than anyone else was offering. Still probably cheap at the price. I think the original bidding, I think Eddie Jordan, like you say, was an aggressive representative for Adrian Newey. I think the bidding here started around about $50 million a year.
Yeah,
so Lawrence was able to knock that down by 50%. That's what I've been told. But yeah, what is it? Martin Brundle always calls Adrian Newey disgracefully underpaid.
Yes,
that's
a bargain. Lawrence Stroll said he was a bargain.
He did,
today.
didn't he? He did.
He said, for answering your question, when he said he's a bargain. If you can move from where Aston Martin are at the moment, in 5th in the constructors, 5th to 4th is what, 15 million? 4th to 3rd is another 10. And then to 1st, if they go from 5th to 1st, let's say over the space of a couple of years, there's your 50 million straight off the
other
bat.
interesting thing, he's going to work full time here, which I don't think he has been doing at Red Bull. Well, he's been involved in other projects, including the Valkyrie one. But he's going to. Well, he seemed to signal he was going to be putting in a good hard shift, and it is F1 focused. Any road car project is down the line, from what I can gather. So priority one is to get the F1 team winning.
Yes, he said that you would have to be. He said, I'll be here with an office. You have to be if you're to do it, the job properly. And although he did scoff at our colleague Andrew Benson's question from the BBC, who was saying, well, I think at Red Bull it was your choice to go 3 days a week. And Adrian said, well, I never knew where 3 days a week was doing. So maybe he was doing longer than we thought at Red Bull Racing. I don't know, but he said, you'd have to be there. And he said that I will be here just directing the people underneath me, my technical team. So, he said he will have a drawing board, first of all, so they'll have an office, maybe like this, overlooking the lovely
this, I mean, who knows? Scenery. This could be the future office of Adrian Newey. Who's to say? Overlooking the canteen.
Could be. Let's put a microphone in the corner.
Yeah.
And long battery. March he's starting. Next March. And he'll be doing some drawing on his drawing board, but he'll be directing all the people underneath him. And he's got Dan Fellows, who he worked with successfully at Red Bull Racing. And is it Eric Blondin?
Yes. Enrico
Cardile.
Yes.
So lots of people from lots of different teams coming here.
Does Dan stay, do you think?
Yes. I don't see this as a comment on Dan Fellows' work. I think it's a way of making everything come together, because Lawrence said we lost our way. Was that the word he said?
Yes.
When he was talking about this year's performance?
Yeah.
He
Gone down the wrong direction.
We went down the wrong
Yeah.
direction. I had it written down here somewhere.
Yeah.
We had a great 2023, obviously, where Fernando Alonso was seemingly scoring podiums for fun and could have won a couple of races. We've gone down the wrong direction, and we need this person to put us right.
Yeah.
So Dan Fallows and all these people can come up with great ideas. They just need somebody to direct them in the right direction, which, conductor of the orchestra.
I mean, it must be a little. I felt a bit for Dan Fallows a bit today, because I suppose in one sense this was meant to be him spreading his wings away from Adrian Newey. There has been a bit of speculation about whether he would continue, because he has been technical director here, so presumably had the ultimate say on the car, which he will no longer have. I mean, it'd be great. I think they'll want to keep him, won't they? And actually, the one thing Dan Fallows always said about Adrian Newey was that Adrian Newey listens, doesn't just dictate design. If ideas are good, he takes them on board. And so the two obviously did work together in the past, and maybe there can be that accommodation here again.
Yeah, I admire your empathy, but I don't think Dan Fallows needs to be felt sorry for. I spoke to him in Hungary about this particular, before we ever knew this was actually happening. And I said, would you, how would you feel about working with Adrian again? And he was like, great, bring it on. All right, maybe he's saying that publicly, but it would be fantastic. He said he is the most competitive, fiercely competitive, I think was the phrase Dan Fallows used. Just to fill you in, Dan Fallows was Adrian Newey's kind of second in command at Red Bull Racing, made a break from that. There was a tug of war for his services, people don't know. Ended up leaving Red Bull in a kind of hostage exchange deal, wasn't it? And a kind of crossing the lines in East Berlin, and actually managed to come here, and maybe hasn't enjoyed the success he has, but now he's rejoined with him. I think this creates and cements Fallows' position here rather than threatens it, and I think it'll be positive. And that's what Fallows said to me in Hungary. So he's got no problem with him coming. He's happy to.
Interesting. I think in seeing as we're doing this bit of context, it'd be good just to discuss Adrian and what Adrian is going to bring to Aston Martin. And I use the word guarantee. Is Adrian Newey, do you think, the best guarantee of success in Formula One that you can have? You can have all the money, but ultimately if you've got Adrian Newey, that is going to pretty much as sure as you can be.
I know this is something we do want to talk about. I always thought it was Christian Horner's greatest achievement was to keep him at the team and keep him happy, and that he recognised what a kind of golden egg Adrian Newey was in terms of being able to create the success that Red Bull have had.
He's the goose that lays
he's
the
the
golden
goose
egg.
that lays. He's the exactly.
Or he's the golden egg himself.
Yes, exactly that. But that I think one of the reasons he's left is because he felt underappreciated. I think in the last years, and because Red Bull perhaps convinced themselves that it was their technical department as a wider entity which was responsible for the success rather than the extra element that Newey brought. And I think, and you asked the question, didn't you, about what's gone wrong with your car today?
The Red Bull.
And we learned, or had confirmed properly for the first time, that he's had no input on that car at all since April. Since
the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And he told Red Bull he was leaving.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another illustrator, I think, of actually how, even in a short space of time, his input or lack of it is felt.
To answer your question, on the car side, yes, Adrian is the best guarantee of success that you can have. The only problem is in 2026, it's going to be mostly about the power unit, because that's what's changing the most. The removal of half the energy recovery system generation of electricity in the terms of the MGUH, which runs off the turbo. So most of that electricity to be used on acceleration is going to have to be garnered from the MGUK, which is mean that you're going to have to slow down the car even sometimes on the straights just to generate electricity. So a lot of it is in the engine, which has been Newey's bugbear in the past, in the Renault days, that he didn't have an engine capable of his chassis designs. He's very keen to underline Honda's influence. This will be a works Honda team in 2026. It's not a customer of anybody. So that will be important. And Adrian was keen to underline how highly he rates Honda.
Loves working with
Honda. After a slow start in Formula One, they're back into, recent times, they're back, on top of it with what they're doing with Red Bull at the moment. So that's to answer that question. But on the Red Bull thing, two things on that. Why he left it, he felt that he was getting a bit stale, been there maybe a bit too long. I'll take what you're saying about being underappreciated. I think part of that was that Christian Horner was trying to do what he felt he needed to do, was to keep some of the other people at the team by bigging them up, had the negative effect of actually maybe alienating the one man he needed to keep Sweet, but always maybe thought already he had kept Sweet, but hadn't, and has now lost. And the other question is, of course, the deal that Adrian and Eddie Jordan cut to allow him to start so soon here at Aston Martin, March the 3rd next year, that is still one of the big unanswered questions. What did Red Bull get in recompense for that?
I see, yeah.
What was the upside for Red Bull?
Yeah.
For Red Bull allowing Adrian to start and have a positive influence so soon on a rival team at Aston Martin? And the other question is, which we'll get on to, can I ask now?
Go on.
I've written it down. Seeing as we're talking about Red Bull, Red Bull Racing and Christian Horner, I imagine that, and God bless Sky Sports F1, that we actually broadcast today's press conference. Great service. So well done, Sky.
Yeah, well done.
Watching that live stream of the, I imagine, as I was sitting there thinking that Sky F1 are broadcasting this, where's Christian Horner at this moment? Is he sat on his sofa in his office with an empty office? Do you remember in Red Bull, Adrian Newey used to have the office next to Christian's with a kind of ghost of Adrian Newey, an unused, drawing board. And Christian sort of sat on his sofa watching Sky F1 on the TV of Adrian joining Aston Martin, but thinking, with the exception of Williams, is this the best possible outcome for Christian Horner and Red Bull Racing? Yeah. Would it have been more worrying for Red Bull and Christian if Adrian had gone, do you know what? Ferrari with Lewis, a team that's already winning. Mercedes, I'm going to Mercedes. Or McLaren, forbid.
But you can make a case.
A team that's already faster.
I asked him that very question.
I
said, did you breathe a sigh of relief because it was apparent he was coming here?
You asked Christian.
I asked Christian Horner, did you breathe a sigh of relief that it was Aston Martin, not one of your direct rivals at the moment?
Yeah.
And he gave a fairly vague answer, but not knowing where Adrian was going to go, and about it being up to him, and he'd support him whatever he chose to do. I, like you, I'm suspicious of the idea that Newey's years of decorating the Red Bull trophy cabinet somehow earned him the liberty to break his contract early. To answer that point that you
think
raised.
there was goodwill there?
I don't know.
You're sceptical of that?
I don't know what. I think there must have been more to it than that, but I don't. It's hard to say what, isn't it? But that would surely be an element. There must have been some goodwill if he's saying he wants to leave, not to hold him to the full extent of his contract, I would imagine. But yes, that is an unanswered question. But yeah, I think you're right. There are still a lot of building blocks. Things have to coalesce here, but they've got a lot of. They're not. He's not taking over. This is very much more fully realised product than Red Bull was when he arrived there, isn't it?
Is it?
Yes, that's a good point.
Is this not actually more of a clean slate? Because everything is built now, isn't it? By the time Adrian moves in, this facility is hugely impressive, as we've seen today, and you just take one look around this, it looks ready to win Formula One championships, you would say. So is this not actually Adrian being able to put his own stamp on a blueprint of a Formula One team, as opposed to going to Ferrari, where we've already got these things in place, we've already got our way of doing things. It's going to be a lot harder for him to put his stamp on it. I don't know.
I guess so. I think it's the question you're asking: why not Ferrari?
Yeah.
Why not McLaren?
Yeah.
Why not Mercedes? Why not Williams? Who were the other ones kind of in?
Alpine made a late kind of push for him.
Should we go through them all? Why not those other people?
Well, the Ferrari one is worth. I think the Ferrari.
Okay. Let's deal with the teams he's already been at.
Yeah.
I think Williams would have been. It's just too much. It's too much. He knows what the Williams factory is. He knows how much it needs to change. I mean, that's a 10-year plan, isn't it? It's a facility. It's not a new facility that has everything here. It's a facility in transition. Why not Mercedes? Do you think teaming up with a sort of James Allison super team and not the promise of a shareholding would have made it difficult?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they didn't show him enough respect contractually. Maybe the offer wasn't big enough. Again, it's not adding. It's adding to a period of success. I mean, the point you made when we were discussing this earlier about there being more to achieve here is probably relevant, certainly to Mercedes, isn't it, in the recent past.
So maybe same for McLaren. He's been there before, doesn't really want to go back. He made a very interesting comment about factories in the beginning of the press conference, did Adrian Newey, which I took to be McLaren. He said, factories are really important. It's nice to come and have somewhere that feels good and that can make people communicate to each other and has nice wood, sorry, he didn't mention the wood, but this is what I took from it, that has a nice feeling to the factory that allows creativity to flow because we are in a creative business. And some factories I've worked in don't have that. And there was a snicker. Martin Whitmarsh was there. He can only mean the McLaren Technology Centre, that when you go into it, I mean, it is like going onto a rocket ship command. It is like going into mission control. But you do sometimes feel, I felt sometimes your individuality being sucked out of you when you go into the McLaren Technology something. To his credit, something Zak Brown has tried to improve since he took over as CEO. But yeah, this is it. It's important for a factory to build a warm, creative space. That's what Newey said. And that's what we're here to do. You have to be creative. I've seen some buildings that don't do that. And I put in brackets MTC. So that I said it, he didn't be. And this is a nice place to be. And so I think this feels like a mini Red Bull to me. This feels like kind of the next Red Bull project for him. He's got a factory that he knows he can do business with. And so the last question is, why not Ferrari? And is it that he would have felt that he had less influence or less to achieve there than actually taking Aston Martin, who are at the moment 5th in the constructors, rather than 2nd or 3rd or even maybe 1st at the end of the year? Who knows? Into the beginning. He could have more influence here than he could have at Ferrari.
Does he also cement the greatest ever if he turns Aston Martin into a championship winning team?
I think if he'd won,
he is the greatest ever.
For Ferrari, that would have been more of a greatest ever.
You think?
Yes, I agree with that. All I would say, keep coming back to this, and I did try in these last weeks, try and check in with all of these teams bidding for Newey, and the only one that showed genuine and consistent urgency to pursue him was this one, I have to say. The rest were, yes, we'd like him, but we're not prepared to pay the earth. There was always a but. And this team were always going to pull out all the stops to get him.
Did people say we're not prepared to get into a bidding war?
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes, I agree. A little, yeah.
The other point on Ferrari that we have to say is the Lewis Hamilton question, and there was, I seem to remember, a pen interview. Ted wasn't Lewis very complimentary to Adrian in a pen interview, sort of almost courting him quite publicly for the Ferrari project of next year?
This goes back to what I was saying about this being seismic for Formula One. When Adrian joined Red Bull, it was a magnet for all the best people to go there. And it's going to be the same for Aston Martin. Yeah. It's inevitable. The history shows this is what happens. And that goes for drivers too.
Max Verstappen,
maybe. Lewis Hamilton, anything is possible. Fernando Alonso.
Lewis is going to come back after 2 years.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
So Fernando Alonso is 43 now. He'll be 40, obviously, maths. He'll be 44 when Adrian starts to have his first influence on the 2025 car. And he'll be 45 years old when he drives the first purely Adrian Newey car going for the championship. Now, I asked Newey about this directly, and Adrian said it's the mental will. You're still quick enough. You're still quick enough at the age. You're still quick enough. That's no problem. It's the mental fatigue that goes, and you don't want to do it anymore. And if Fernando can buck that and wants to keep going, then there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to. So Fernando going for a championship. Third championship at 45 years old. But there's nothing to say that Fernando won't get that missing 33rd win that he's still going for in 2025, towards the end, with a Newey-influenced car, and that would be fantastic. So the opportunity of working for Fernando, what did he call him? He called me
arch enemy.
Arch enemy. He did. Yeah. He said, Fernando, it's a great opportunity to be in. He's been somewhat of an arch enemy over the years and came close to coming to Red Bull for 2009. It didn't happen.
We used to say, Alonso, didn't they? We're not just fighting Vettel, we're fighting Newey as well. And
now he's got him on his side. But I remember that when it was Paul Monaghan, actually, who was at Red Bull, who used to be Fernando's race engineer at Renault. He was one of the key people who convinced or tried to convince Fernando to come to Red Bull at the time. So it was 2008, 2009, long before you were, before your time. But yeah, he was quite close.
Yeah.
And in the end, it didn't happen.
So that's one of the drivers. What about Lance Stroll?
Well,
what does Lance Stroll sit there thinking when he sees what's happening in front of him?
He thinks this is my opportunity to win more, win races and challenge for the championship. So Lance, I spoke to him. Did you? Yeah, I spoke to him just about half an hour ago, and I said to him, "Look, you've never had a car capable of winning. He almost won in Turkey that day, didn't he? Yeah. When he was on pole, but his tyres went off. Almost. Had pole positions, had podiums, all of that." And Lance was like, "Yeah, I need to recompute, or I will recompute in my own head that when everything is right for him in the car, Lance is as quick as anybody. It's just that he needs to get all those things to be right. By his own admission, sometimes when things don't go quite right, then he doesn't have sometimes the adaptability that maybe others. Lance says this himself. I'm not interpreting anything for him. So once Lance has a car that he can do, he's quick as anyone, and then this means race wins and championships, and that's very exciting for him.
What about, I asked you this question in the press conference. I said this is a silly question, and you said it's all good. He joins in March. Was it the 5th of March he joins?
I believe...
Second or third, isn't it?
The second is a Sunday.
Right, so it'll be third then.
Adrian said the 2nd of March,
he did,
2025, and I thought, oh, that's a Sunday.
So maybe the contract hasn't been signed.
Is it the,
the third, Monday is the 3rd of March.
Is it a race weekend?
And then Pancake Day is the Tuesday.
Brilliant.
Next week.
So imagine, the canteen below us, they'll be.
It is Shrove Tuesday, it's Pancake Day, isn't it? It's not Ash Wednesday.
I just can't remember.
Sorry, go on. He joins on the 3rd of March.
Yeah, so my question to you was, is that not a bit late in the day? Because given, obviously, you can't start work on the 26 regs until the, 1st or 2nd of Jan in 2025. So tell me why him arriving 2 months already into a 12-month schedule on car development is okay, and it's not going to be a problem.
Well, Newey explained this himself in the press conference. He said, when I arrive, I will see what they've been doing, because
it'd be like having your work marked, wouldn't it? After sort of 2 months
it will,
of
because the
work.
The technical regulations, if they're ever agreed on, for 2026 will be published on the 1st or 2nd of January 2025, and then everybody will be like, okay, we've had an idea what it's going to be. Vroom, now we're at it. So they've got 2 months. They've got January and February here at Aston Martin. They'll go down the route that they think is the best. Together with Honda, they'll be working on what are the best ways, because we're going to have these movable rear wings and front wings. It's going to be like these flash cars.
That's the offset to the power units being significant, is that the aerodynamics are also going to have to be all the more significant to compensate for the lack of power. So actually, that plays to his strengths. But what were we joking that he'll allow them to get on with designing the seat belts,
yes,
and the mirrors.
And then
leave the rest to me. I'll be thinking about it.
But he said, I'll come in. I will come in and get to know everybody, get to know what they do, and then start having my influence. I'll have a drawing board. I'll be working with my fellow engineers. I'll be going to races and trying to understand what the drivers are saying, turning their comments into an engineering program.
He's he's an adjuster of others' work, isn't he? He is talking about marking homework, but he's like strikes me a little bit one of those super producers like a Mark Ronson or a
Calvin Harris
a Nile Rodgers or Trevor Horn from the 1980s.
We get Nile Rodgers and Trevor Horn.
Yeah. One of those
the hit makers.
He's not Stock Aitken and Waterman. Nothing against them and the collaborations with Kylie and all that, but I think he can make a car, an Adrian Newey car, without physically touching the controls, with his explaining to people to do things a different way. But there is a lag time, there will be. I always love the thing about him, he sets great store by thinking time, doesn't he? So, and that's what he will have, I guess, without necessarily putting the ideas into actual manufactured parts for the first couple of months. He'll be able to think about the rules and their wider exploitability, if that's a word. That was a thing he did at Red Bull, wasn't it? He was driven into work and back every day. They did not drive himself in order to give himself more thinking time to think about the various problems. He would sit in the back of the car and just have time to mull over things. So that extra, you'll have more of that to bring to and maybe come with a more fully realised product. Some teams, they will go too quickly, won't they, for 2026, I guess. They'll immediately have to think, we need to get ahead on this. Whereas sometimes those with a more fully realised concept and base, as I think Red Bull were able to do, get the head start, even if they haven't got a more realised finished product. Maybe Aston Martin in this current route, they started very well, didn't they? And have fallen away relative to others. So it's not such a disaster. He's starting a couple of months late.
I always had an idea that he turned up to Red Bull in his Aston Martin. So he has a couple of vintage Aston Martins. One which is a beautiful navy blue DB5 that if you've ever been to the British Grand Prix, you might have seen him driving in and out. So he's a fan of the Aston Martin brand.
Do you know what car
designed the?
Sorry, do you know what car he's getting for next year? No. The new Red Bull hypercar.
What?
The RB17. So can you imagine him coming up to the Aston Martin factory in his Red Bull hypercar?
He did the Aston Martin Valkyrie, which is the track day car that they've already done. So he's a fan of the brand.
Yeah.
And he said, so the only mention he did of Ferrari in that press conference was to say, second to Ferrari, I rate Aston Martin as the world's most premier brand. It's a very alluring brand that I'm delighted to be part of it. But going back to your creative thing, something Adrian didn't say in a press conference today, but I've heard him say before, is that as a creative person, you and he always worried about where the next idea is going to come from. And that's what he felt, that he was just running out of those ideas at Red Bull. We'll get onto that maybe next. And this gives him the extra creative spark. He felt he was getting a bit stale at Red Bull Racing. And moving here gives him the new creative spark, whether it's that from staring out of windows at the scenery going by, or holidaying on a yacht,
or the pressure of justifying his wage. Maybe the fact that he's got to, has he still got it? I suppose at the age of 65, and maybe people will question whether he can still do it.
Who are those people? I don't.
Well, his current team, for example, were talking, well, might he retire?
We've heard it with Fernando, haven't we?
Yeah.
That's why Fernando was quite upset, wasn't he, when he moved to when he moved away from Alpine? He said he wasn't offered a long enough term deal. The people in charge weren't.
His name his age was mentioned quite a lot around the time when it was announced his departure, as though. Have we had his best years, kind of thing?
No, I think anybody who was saying that Adrian Newey is going straight into retirement fatally underestimated the man and the competitiveness within him, and they didn't understand that he is a hugely competitive man. As Adrian said in the press conference, Frank Williams used to say to me, "You're the most competitive man in Formula One," and I never knew what he meant. He said, I think we know what he meant. But that does lead us on, Matthew, to what on earth has happened to his Red Bull RB20. Was it right that nobody asked him in the proper open press conference? I think that would have been a step too far. I did ask him in our sit down, and his answer was brief, and I have no idea because I haven't been there since April working on the car. I'd like to think about that a bit more.
Yeah.
Does he
I have
really
no
not,
idea.
Does he really not know? Has it changed that much? Because Red Bull have gone back to the Japan spec car, essentially. And I love that his last weekend, the weekend Newey decided to leave Red Bull, was when they just dominated the Japanese Grand Prix with a 1-2 for Verstappen and Perez. Yeah. And he thought, do you know what? Then I spoke to him on the notebook, didn't I, after Japan? I was walking back off the grid where they were doing the photo and just said to him, hats off, you seem to have bettered last year's already dominant F1 car. Seems a stupid thing to say now when they're looking vulnerable in both championships. And he was talking about how it's group effort. But does he really not know what's happened to the RB20 since he left? Would he be able to fix it now if he was still down the road at Milton Keynes?
I wanted to know, well, I know he does speak to Christian Horner, but that was a question I wanted to ask today. Can you still give a word of advice here and there? Apparently not. No, zero. So,
well, because we think it's at Red Bull's insistence. They froze him out of all technical matters. And he said, all right, if you're going to freeze me out of all technical matters, then I can't help you with my car that doesn't seem to be working now.
Quite extraordinary, isn't it, when you put it like that?
Would he be able to? I mean, maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he wouldn't be able to fix it.
But would the car have ever got to this point where it wasn't working with Adrian still in charge?
No, these are unknowable.
These are hypotheticals, aren't they? Yeah. But you can't argue. People at home would be sat there going, well, Adrian left and the car stopped working as well as it has.
Almost to the week.
Yeah.
Although Max did win in Spain,
but give or take, it doesn't take a genius to work out, does it?
The official line was what the problems were there, and it had these characteristics on certain circuits in particular, which were masked by its overall superiority because the others hadn't caught up yet. Is the official line.
But would Adrian have been able to look at it any differently to the rest of them? I don't know.
Go back in with the negotiation, couldn't it?
That floor didn't work with that bodywork. Let's go back to that. I find it difficult. I think that I can't believe he would have left, and the rest of them who are not stupid at Red Bull, they would know. So I think he'd be scratching his head as much as they are as to what's happened to his RB20. But his instant response was, I don't know. Not my problem. Which it is.
Yes, he didn't volunteer. No, we knew we were coming to the end of a development curve, and it was always likely to happen.
You're right.
It was.
Yeah. Any more to add on that? Because there's another topic that I want to get into.
Is there?
Lawrence Stroll.
Oh, I see.
I feel like we've touched on it, but I do think now we need to just discuss. I mean, you said actually Frank Williams called him the most competitive person in the pit lane. Lawrence in the press release said, Adrian is a racer and one of the most competitive people I have ever met. There was an interesting anecdote about how they first maybe not got to know each other, but when they first started talking about the possibility of Adrian coming over to Aston Martin, that this plan was hatched in the gym. We learned, didn't we, that maybe figuratively.
That we see each other in the gym.
Yes.
Lawrence is on the treadmill.
Yes.
Adrian's on the bike.
I mean, I thought that was quite interesting intel. Yeah.
Bike is always better than the treadmill for your knees.
But to be fair to Lawrence Stroll, he's incredibly serious about this plan in Formula One, and if anything, if building this was not enough, we can now firmly say with the signing of Adrian Newey, he is as serious as it gets.
He was seen the interest. Newey kept on saying today, Lawrence Stroll is one of the main reasons I've signed. Whereas in the first few weeks when he was available and on the market, well-connected people, well-connected to Adrian Newey, were telling me Lawrence Stroll is the reason they won't sign for Aston Martin because he's too much of a hands-on micromanager, would interfere in the factory too much. Newey wouldn't want someone like him looking over his shoulder. But I think we have to accept they have formed a relationship. And I think, to be fair, Lawrence Stroll wouldn't get to where he is in business if he didn't know how to deal with creatives like Newey. Different type of person to him. I think Newey described with me, yes, he is a bit bombastic, but he knows how to press Newey's buttons, and I think if that was going to be an issue, they've managed to work that through.
But the way that Newey is a managing, he's a partner, and while yes, he reports to Lawrence, it's at the same, I mean, Lawrence is the majority shareholder, but Adrian is a shareholder. I don't think that will be a problem, first of all. And secondly, I go back to, was it on Drive to Survive or somewhere else, where there's a quote from Lawrence Stroll. He says, it was on the Lawrence Stroll Drive to Survive episode. He said, I'm Lawrence Stroll, and I'm going to build the best Formula One team in the world. Was that on there, or was it on an Aston Martin?
I remember the
promotional?
5-year. Do you remember the 5-year plan?
I'm going to build,
Yeah.
and I'm going to build the most successful, championship-winning team in Formula One. And everyone was like, yeah, well, he would say that.
Yeah.
This is where that starts. And he's delivering on that. That in the signing of Adrian Newey, he is building potentially the most successful or the next championship-winning team in Formula One.
Final point, unless you have anything else to...
No, I mean, I did think that was interesting that Adrian likes having a team owner who's the team boss.
Like a Frank Williams.
A Ron Dennis.
Yeah.
Talked about Mateschitz, didn't he?
Dietrich Mateschitz.
He talked about not having Mateschitz there was an issue at Red Bull. He felt more, he felt as though he had enjoyed
having
contact with the owner.
A sort of patron, a team big, whereas Christian Horner's always been just an organizer of people and of men and women and trying to get everything to work, dealing with Helmut Marko and Adrian Newey and the factory and everything. And Christian's constantly spinning plates. He's not a team owner, even in the way Toto Wolff is a third team owner. Who are the other big team owners? There's Lawrence Stroll now. Ferrari's, owned by a big company. Toto is.
Elkan is an owner, but he's quite involved.
Elkan's not really. So that's what attracted, that you have somebody who you'll be able to go to and with an issue or something, and Adrian said this is important, doesn't have to go to a board or anything like that. You can go to Lawrence and say, we need this, and it will happen. And that was another draw for him.
Yeah. Okay, so final point. As we sit here, the Aston Martin
in Adrian
Technology Campus
office,
the floor's still smelling very new. Everything's smelling very new. What do you make of this facility? You've been to, I imagine, every factory between you, certainly in Formula One. So to tell me where this sits now in the pantheon of Formula One factories.
Well, I'm not an expert judge of wind tunnels and so on, but it's the one thing of the new projects. I think Volkswagen Group and Sauber, that's a small unit, hard to expand, which looks a bit tired, and you can't see the investment there that you can here.
So you mean Sauber and Hinwil?
Yes, yes.
Haas is split over 2 sites, sort of assembly site in Bicester down the road. Mercedes has kind of been built up, but is a good, championship winning facility. Ferrari's huge, but is essentially built up from has its history to fall back on, same as Williams. McLaren is being changed. Adrian seemed to allude that it maybe wasn't the most fun place to work. Alpine is being rebuilt and improved on.
Cost cap wise, the size of this place is, rather than having to axe staff and lose staff that the likes of Mercedes and McLaren have had to do, they were a kind of nice size to grow into the cost cap epoch, I suppose.
Yeah, Red Bull was always, it seemed to be a nice place to work. Adrian stayed there for long enough and heaven knows has produced great cars, so it must have something good going for it. But Red Bull still use the old industrial 1950s post-war wind tunnel, don't they? The old British Aerospace wind tunnel until they get their new one going, and that's been sort of hinted at as part of the cause for some of their issues. That sometimes the wind tunnel doesn't provide consistently brilliant results, although can do on its day because obviously they've not suffered, have they, Red Bull, from having bad cars recently. So the answer is, I think. Sorry, do you want to?
I was going to say the most. People as much as resource now with the cost cap is in the most acquisitive teams in terms of recent signings, or I think name signings. McLaren, with the likes of Rob Marshall and he's a Prodromu, but they were in for David Sanchez. Obviously, they let him go, but they've signed people from other teams, and this place, you've got a half a dozen well-known names.
Yeah, Ferrari's turned out to be pretty good.
Ferrari have
signing
recruited
people.
a few, yes. Red Bull conspicuously haven't really. Neither have Mercedes, you'd have to say, of the names, that are going around.
But I would say this is right up there with Red Bull and Mercedes. Obviously, Ferrari is a very different place, but throughout history, Ferrari has had new bits built, and they've done over a very different concept. But certainly Ferrari would do a bit of a different thing, but Red Bull and Mercedes and this place are on, I would say, the same level.
Yeah.
Which is what Newey saw in the facilities himself.
And maybe better.
That time will tell.
Time will tell.
So the greatest days of ancient Athens, in terms of the philosophy that came out, was before they built the Parthenon. Well, actually, I usually apply that to the McLaren Technology Centre. I think they built this incredible edifice, but the great days of building cars there were in the years before, by and large, it seems to me. So I don't think it's all about bricks and mortar.
Yes.
But I think it needed it here, because this was a small team. It's on a small site with maybe a glass ceiling to its ambitions, and now you walk in here and every day that the end goal is to be number one and nothing else will do. That's
now they know that.
Yeah.
And as I'll leave on the words of Fernando Alonso, who must have used the word incredible opportunity 3 times. In fact, he did. I wrote it down. It's incredible opportunity, great opportunity to work with a person of this quality, and maybe the final word to Lawrence Stroll. Nothing good comes cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm glad you picked up on that. That was quite
nothing good.
Yeah.
Was it who asked him? Was he a bargain? You asked him.
It was me. Yeah.
So it was Adrian is a bargain. I've been in business for 40 years. He's an investor and a partner, and flattered by what we've got. And nothing good comes cheap. The old phrase, isn't it? You buy
I say it all the time, Ted. I don't know about
cheap,
you. Yeah.
You buy cheap, you buy twice.
Yeah. Say that more. There isn't a cheap Adrian Newey, so anyway. All right, just time to tell you about the timings for Azerbaijan before we go. It's an earlier race start this week, but let's talk about Friday. FP1 were on air from 10 o'clock. FP2, 1:45 for a session start of 2 o'clock. Saturday, FP3 is at 9:15. Qualifying were on air from 12:15 before a session start at 1 o'clock. And then Sunday, this is where it all gets a bit interesting. We build up from 10:30 before a lights out at midday. What are you going to ask in the pen? Are you going to raise the Adrian question in the pen?
Well, I've already spoken to Lance Stroll about it, but definitely talked to Fernando Alonso about whether he can hang on. Can you hang on for your first Newey car? You'll be 45 years old. Yeah. And can you hang on to be potentially a world champion in that car in 2026? This place is going for a world championship in 2026. Yeah. And they've got the man to do it now. Yeah. Can they do it? Will it be Alonso, 3rd world championship, the age of 45 in a Aston Martin Honda?
There's more Greek mythology.
No, it's Adrian Newey licensed to thrill, but there'll be those who are sorry that he isn't helping the 007 times world champion Lewis Hamilton win an 8th.
I really like that, Craig. I think that's
true.
If we were to end on anything, it's that. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Ted. We'll be back. Actually, we've got an episode with Valtteri Bottas. If you're watching this on Tuesday evening, tonight, tomorrow there is an episode with Valtteri Bottas to be released. And then we'll be back after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix to look back at that as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye for now.